The door to Harlan's office clicked shut behind me with that finality you only recognize in hindsight. I stood there, the fluorescent hum buzzing in my ears like a distant swarm, and watched as he finally looked up from his tablet. No greeting. No small talk about the weekend. Just a curt nod toward the chair opposite his desk. "Effective immediately," he said. His voice as flat as the termination notice he slid across the polished wood. 19 years, poof.
Gone.
Like deleting a file you never backed up. I didn't flinch. Didn't beg or rage. I just picked up the paper, scanned the legalese about streamlining operations and centralized oversight, and felt a quiet click inside me, like a switch flipping to standby mode. Harlan leaned back, expecting drama, maybe tears or outburst. But I gave him nothing. "You'll need the access codes," he added, almost as an afterthought. I met his eyes then.
Steady.
Unblinking. "I'm afraid that's not possible." The words hung there. Simple. Unadorned. Then I folded the notice neatly, set it back down, and walked out. The hallway stretched ahead, endless under the sterile lights, each step echoing softer than the last. No one glanced up from their cubicles. They didn't know yet.
How could they?
I'd been the invisible glue holding Apex Dynamics together, the guy who knew every vein in the beast, every pulse point where the building lived and breathed. Not just wires and servers, but the soul of the place. The kind of knowledge you earn through midnight crises, flooded basements, and power surges that could fry a city's worth of data. And now, they thought they could excise me like a bad appendix. Outside, the Chicago wind slapped my face, sharp and unforgiving, matching the cold not forming in my gut. I slid into my car, engine rumbling to life. But I didn't drive off right away. Sat there, hands on the wheel, staring at the Apex Tower looming against the gray sky. My phone buzzed. Access revoked. Email from HR. No severance chat. No exit survey. Just digital erasure. But as the adrenaline ebbed, a slow smile crept in. They had no clue. Harlan, with his MBA polish and corner office, thought the master keys were a password scribbled in a vault. He didn't know about the layers I'd woven in over the years, not for power, but for protection. From idiots like him.
Decentralized failsafes.
Hidden protocols. Emergency loops named after old blues tracks or forgotten projects. No single map existed because I was the map. Driving home through the industrial sprawl, past warehouses humming with unseen life, I felt the weight lift just a fraction. The building wasn't just steel and glass, it was a living entity I'd nurtured. And without the right handover, it would protect itself. Not out of spite.
But design. Pure.
Elegant design. At home. I brewed black coffee, strong enough to cut through the fog, and booted up my personal rig. First move, sever the sync. Then, archive the logs, every change, every timestamp, locked behind my encryption. No rush. No panic. I'd seen the signs coming, Harlan's efficiency audits, the whispers of outsourcing. But they'd botched the cut. And now the wound would bleed. Not because I'd tamper. No. The system would do it all on its own, locking down like a fortress sensing breach. I leaned back, steam rising from the mug, and let the quiet settle. For the first time in years, no alerts pinged my screen. No false alarms from the HVAC in Sector 3. No badge glitches in the East Wing. Just silence. And in that silence, I knew something would break. It always did when the Guardians stepped away. The first crack appeared subtly, like frost creeping across a window pane. I remembered the day I truly grasped no one else understood Apex, like really understood it. It was back in '07. Knee-deep in a sub-basement flood, Flashlight clamped between my teeth. Splicing emergency power lines with parts scavenged from a defunct factory down the block. No blueprints matched reality. Half were outdated. The rest fiction. So I rebuilt from scratch. Not with fanfare or budgets. Just grit and necessity. Because when you're the lone barrier between a skyscraper full of suits and total blackout, you don't wait for green lights. You forge them. Over the years, it became an obsession. Badge systems? I layered in behavioral analytics, swipes that cross-checked biometrics and time patterns. HVAC? Redundant paths with auto-throttles tied to occupancy sensors, preventing overloads even if 3 compressors failed. Fire suppression? Oxygen-monitored releases, scripted to avoid false positives that could drown servers in foam. I even embedded test scripts disguised as maintenance routines, just to probe vulnerabilities. Outsiders, consultants with their slick pitches, begged for access. I shut them down. Kept it all in-house. Segmented. Secure. Because trust isn't a checkbox, it's a fortress you build brick by invisible brick. Harlan thought he could centralize it all with a memo. What a joke. There was no central hub. Just interlocking zones. Each with its own guardian logic, physical presence required for some, sequenced commands for others. Documentation?
Scattered.
Cryptic. Intentional. No binder could capture it. You'd need to live it. And I had. Every hum, every flicker, every pressure drop, I felt them like extensions of my own nerves. People upstairs lived in their PowerPoints, oblivious. They swiped in, assumed the lights stayed on by magic. Adorable. Really.
But now,
with me gone, the magic would fade. The system didn't recognize Harlan. It never would. Because I hadn't built Apex to be user-friendly. I'd built it to endure. Even me. Back in the moment. After Harlan's office. I didn't unpack rage at home. Instead, I methodically ran the detachment protocol from my archive. Nodes blinked offline one by one, security, climate, power routing, all entering vacancy mode. Per policy I drafted years ago. Untouched since. Custodial vacancy triggered lockouts until proper reassignment. No deletions. No alterations. Just compliance.
Pure.
Unyielding compliance. I emailed legal, as per clause 8.2c. Systems in deferred lockdown. Available for consult under contract.
Then,
shut down. Peace washed over me.
Cool and deep.
Like finishing a marathon you didn't sign up for. The house felt larger. Quieter. No more 3 a.m. calls from panicked VPs about the air feeling funny. Just me. The coffee cooling. And the certainty that Apex was already whispering its dissent. Doors sticking on off-hours protocols. Temps drifting. Lights dimming without reason. Not chaos yet. Just preludes. And Harlan? He'd learned soon enough that firing the architect doesn't erase the blueprint. It just leaves you lost in the maze. 3 days passed like a held breath. The kind where you wait for the exhale to shatter the calm. I was out in the garage, tinkering with an old circuit board from a side project, something to keep my hands busy while my mind wandered the invisible corridors of Apex, when the first call came. Not from Harlan. He was too arrogant for that. It was from Lena, the ops coordinator I'd trained back in 15. Her voice cracked through the line, laced with that familiar edge of controlled panic. The West Wing badges are frozen on holiday mode. We can't get engineering in. And the exec tours tomorrow. I paused. Wire strippers mid-cut, letting the silence stretch. I'm not with Apex anymore, I said evenly. A beat. Then rustling papers. I know. But the overrides aren't taking. It's like the system's ignoring us. That's because it is. I thought. But aloud. Check the custodial policy. Legal's your next stop.
Click.
No malice. Just redirection. Back to the board. But my focus sharpened. I could picture it, the frustrated swipes. The gathering huddle of techs poking at panels like cavemen discovering fire. What they didn't grasp was the lockdown cascade I'd engineered. Attempt an unauthorized override? System flags it. Throttles access. And pings a ghost log only the custodian sees.
Mine.
A text buzzed in. Level 2 defense active. Non-crits offline. My old diagnostic script. Buried deep. Smiling faintly, I set the tools down. This wasn't glee. It was validation. The building was doing exactly what I'd taught it, defending against intruders. Even if they wore company badges. Harlan's crew probably tried brute forcing next. Thinking sheer persistence would crack it. Foolish. Each failed attempt layered on restrictions. Elevators prioritizing emergency floors. Lights cycling to energy-save dims. HVAC dropping to baseline to prevent tamper-induced spikes. All automatic. All logged. By evening, I imagine the conference rooms filling with furrowed brows, blame volleying like a bad tennis match.
But me?
I grilled a steak, medium rare, and ate on the porch, watching the city lights flicker like distant servers. The wind carried a chill, foreshadowing the storm brewing miles away at Apex. That night, dreams came in fragments, wires twisting like veins, doors sealing with soft hisses, a building exhaling frost. Woke to another email. This one from compliance. Tone polished. But urgency seeped through. Access clarification needed. Systems in partial hold. Attached, a log of failed entries. I scanned it, noting the patterns, exactly as predicted. Replied with a policy excerpt. Restoration requires audited handover. Clause 5.1b. Third-party consult viable post-review. Hit send. Leaned back. They were dipping toes into the realization. This wasn't a glitch. It was architecture. Deep. Relational. Unforgiving. The cold front hit Chicago like a hammer that week. Temperatures plunging to single digits. Wind chills biting into negatives.
Apex,
with its glass facade and sprawling floors, was a prime target, pipes vulnerable. Systems strained. I was sipping morning coffee when the alerts ramped up. My script pinged. Thermal variance critical. Mitigation stalled. They ignored early warnings. No doubt. Assumed recalibration would suffice. But without custodial validation, the boilers stayed in low mode, interpreting overrides as threats. By midday, reports trickled in via old contacts, drips in accounting, then full bursts in the north sector. Water cascading through ceilings, soaking carpets, shorting outlets. Chaos bloomed slow at first, then explosive, teams scrambling with buckets, electricians killing breakers, VPs barking into phones. Damage tallied quick, millions in structural hits. Data closets compromised. Client ops relocated. I wasn't there, but the stories painted it vivid. Harlan in the war room, face ashen, pointing at screens like they owed him answers. The CFO stormed in, demanded, "Who built this?" Fingers pointed my way. "Who signed off on the firing?" Silence. Then, "You did."
Ouch.
The legacy node in the boardroom hummed on. Untouched, my old safeguard. Irony thick as the frost coating the windows. Contractors swarmed, probing wires, rebooting panels. But they hit walls. Logic trees that looped back on themselves, requiring sequences no one knew. One log entry read, "System resistant to input." Almost. Distrustful. I chuckled alone in my kitchen. Distrustful?
Spot on.
Apex didn't know them. It knew me, my patterns,
My safeguards.
This wasn't payback, it was fidelity.
To code.
To continuity. The building wasn't breaking, it was holding the line. Reputations cracked alongside pipes. Partners bailing. Staff whispering exits. They fired me for efficiency.
Now.
Inefficiency stared back. Frozen and unyielding. The proposal landed in my inbox like a white flag. Wrapped in corporate veneer. Consulting engagement. 120 days. Renewable. Full autonomy.
No sorry.
No context. Just desperation in fine print. I stared at the screen. Coffee gone cold. Principal tugged. Walk back into the echo of betrayal, but deeper. A pull. The building deserved better than to suffer fools. I countered. No retainer. Instead, IP reversion on all custom infrastructure, code, maps, protocols. Everything I'd birthed over 2 decades.
Mine.
They'd license it back. Bold?
Yes.
But they bit. Signed overnight. Reconstruction began at dawn. Not rushed. Methodical, node by node. Rekeying chains, annotating for once. 2 days. That's all it took. Knowing the beast's heart. Handed over the bundle. Operational cert. Docs crystal clear. Apex breathed again. HVAC cycling smooth. Doors unlocking. Lights steady. Compliance's reply. Grateful. Almost warm. Harlan? Radio silent. Fine by me. He was irrelevant now. The building stood. But on my terms. Continuity reclaimed. Not gifted. Weeks blurred into a rhythm I'd forgotten. Mornings without the ping of crisis. Afternoons spent on personal blueprints for a home automation side hustle. The city thawed slowly. Slush melting under hesitant sun. Mirroring the slow unwind in my chest. Apex was functional again. But echoes lingered. Old colleagues texted updates, systems purring. But with a new wariness in the air. Like the building had shown its teeth. And no one forgot. I didn't gloat, didn't need to. The win was in the quiet, knowing my work endured beyond the firing. But life has a way of circling back. Doesn't it? The invite came via email. Subject: Panel speaker, Adaptive Infrastructure in Urban Hubs. From a former mentee now at a think tank. Your story needs telling, he wrote. I hesitated, spotlight wasn't my scene. But the topic pulled, legacy systems in a disposable world. Accepted. The convention center in downtown Chicago buzzed with that artificial energy, booths hawking smart tech, coffee steam mingling with jargon. My panel, Sustaining Core Architectures. I took the stage. Slides minimal, a diagram of intertwined nodes. Overlaid with resilience isn't modular, it's relational. Spoke plain. How buildings think. Resist. Survive if built right. No names. No drama, just logic. Consequences of severing chains without succession. The room leaned in. Notes scratched furiously. Questions flew. How to audit adaptive logic. Fail-safes against turnover? Answered clean. Drawing from Apex without naming it. Post-talk. A line formed, professors from MIT, engineers from State Unis. Handing cards. If you're consulting. I pocketed them. Nodded. That's when I spotted him, Harlan. Lurking by a sparse booth. Lanyard generic. No entourage. Just a sad loop of slides behind him. Our eyes met briefly. He looked away. No wave. No words. But the shift in his stance said it all. Defeat. Recognition. My final slide lingered. Trust in systems is earned. Not assumed. He knew. The room's energy carried me out. But his isolation stuck, a man who'd centralized himself into irrelevance. Back home. The weight of it settled. Not heavy. but profound. I'd reclaimed more than IP. I'd reclaimed narrative. The building wasn't just fixed, it was a testament. And Harlan? A cautionary shadow. The job listing popped up in a forwarded screenshot from a buddy in ops. Thought you'd get a kick. Harlan's profile: experienced director in centralized ops. Seeking immediate roles. Immediate. The word dripped irony. Like his old memo. Stared at it, feeling not victory, but closure. Copied the link. Sent to the CFO. No text. Reply: actions have echoes. Succinct. True. No emoji. Just acknowledgement. Satisfaction bloomed slow. Systems remember. People too. Harlan's fall wasn't my doing. It was gravity after he cut his own ropes. I closed the laptop. Stepped outside. Spring teased the air. Buds pushing through cracks. Like resilience coded into nature. Apex thrived now. Licensed under my name, a quiet empire. But the real shift? Freedom. No more tethered to a place that undervalued its core. New projects beckoned, consults from those convention cards. A startup pitch for adaptive home tech. Life expanded. Unlocked. Yet, a whisper lingered. What if they'd listened? Handled the handover with respect? But they didn't. And in that failure, a lesson etched deep for them. For me. For any fool thinking continuity is optional. The building had spoken. I just translated. Months later, a quiet dinner with old team members, those who'd stayed. Weathered the freeze. Stories flowed. The burst pipes like indoor waterfalls. Harlan's red-faced rants. The collective exhale when systems rebooted. Laughter mixed with nods. Respect earned anew. One asked, regrets?
Paused.
Fork midair.
None.
It needed to happen.
Truth.
The ordeal stripped illusions. Revealed truths. Infrastructure isn't just built, it's bonded. Sever that bond, carelessly, and watch the unravel. They learned. I evolved. End of meal. A toast to guardians unsung.
Clink.
Warmth spread. Not from wine, but connection. Outside. Chicago lights pulsed alive. Enduring. Like the systems I'd fathered. The story didn't end with triumph. It lingered in questions. What price for loyalty discarded? How deep runs the vein of unseen labor? In boardrooms across the city.
Perhaps they pondered now.
Or not. But I knew. Control isn't seized. It's cultivated. Line by painstaking line. The rhythm of post-Apex life settled into something almost poetic. Mornings sketching new protocols for a freelance gig retrofitting a university lab. Afternoons walking the lakefront. Wind whipping thoughts into clarity. No more 24/7 vigilance. The buildings hum a distant memory. Replaced by personal cadence. But echoes surfaced unexpectedly. Like an old script running in the background. A call from a Purdue prof. Your panel inspired our curriculum. Care to guest lecture? Accepted. Stepped into the auditorium. Faces young and eager. And unpacked the essence, not just code, but philosophy. Systems don't fail people. People fail to honor systems. Questions poured. Ethical handovers. IP and infrastructure. Left with invites to collaborate. Validation. Quiet and compounding. Harlan faded further. Rumors of him bouncing consults. Never landing solid. Not schadenfreude, just the market's judgment on hubris. My IP deal with Apex? Ironclad. Royalties ticking in monthly. The building thrived under new ops. But with my blueprints as Bible. A former intern messaged, they're teaching your protocols now. Mandatory.
Smirked.
Legacy embedded. Yet, a deeper current tugged, reflection on the human mangle. I'd poured soul into Apex, only for it to be dismissed. What does that say about corporate America? Loyalty as liability? But in reclaiming, I'd rewritten the script. No victim, architect of outcome. Summer brought a symposium in New York, keynote on resilient designs. Flew in, Manhattan's pulse mirroring my own. Stage lights hot. Audience diverse, architects, CEOs, policymakers. Dove in. Adaptive infrastructure isn't tech, it's trust codified. Case studies veiled. But Apex's shadow loomed. Applause swelled. Networking followed. A venture capitalist approached. Your IP model scalable? Discussions bloomed into partnership seeds. Harlan? Irrelevant. But fate twisted. Spotted his name on a panel rejection list. Via a shared doc. No comment. Just noted. Life's punctuation. Back in Chicago. A quiet evening disrupted by email from Apex's new compliance head. Annual audit. Your doc's invaluable. Queries? Replied briefly. Pro bono. Not for them, for the building. Closure looped. The ordeal's scar tissue strengthened, lessons and boundaries. Value. What if I'd handed over blindly? Oblivion. Instead, empowerment. Dusk walks now carried gratitude for the firing that forged reinvention. Systems, like people, need rupture to reveal strength. Harlan's lesson? Power unchecked corrodes. Mine? Resilience rebounds. A year turned, anniversary of the door click. Marked it with coffee on the porch. Watching dawn break. No bitterness, evolution. New contracts piled, hospitals, data centers seeking my touch. Reputation preceded. The guy who made buildings think. Ironic.
Profound.
The story whispered on. What cost for underestimating the unseen? In quiet moments, it lingered, an ethical echo. Urging better. Time wove forward. Seasons cycling like well-tuned loops. 2 years post-firing. My world expanded. A boutique firm launched. Specializing in bespoke infrastructure. Team small. Trusted. Project selective. Apex? A chapter. Not the book. Royalty steady. But fulfillment deeper in mentoring fresh minds. Embedding ethics into designs. Build for succession.
Not egoi de say.
Irony not lost. A reunion with old Apex crew. Beers in a Wrigleyville bar. Tales retold. The Freeze's frenzy. Harlan's unravel. He landed a gig in Boise, entry-level ops. Chuckles. No malice, closure.
My path.
Lectures. Patents. A TEDx invite. Stage in Seattle. The human code in smart buildings. Crowd wrapped as I unpacked betrayal's architecture. Resilience's rebuild. Firing the Guardian doesn't erase the guards. Ovation. Backstage. A young engineer inspired me to value my work. Ripple effect. Harlan's shadow, dimmed to anecdote. Heard he'd pivoted to sales, irrelevant. My focus, forward. Yet, the core question haunted, in a world of disposables. What's the true cost of severance? Loyalty's erosion? It echoed in boardrooms, perhaps prompting pauses before pink slips. For me, no regrets. The firing birthed agency. Systems I'd touched now whispered my logic across cities. Dusk in Chicago. Lakefront bench, wind carrying reflections. What if they'd respected the handover? Different story. But this one? Mine. Earned. Control isn't taken, it's cultivated. And, in that, enduring power, the building stands, but so do I taller, unbowed. A moral murmur lingers. Honor the builders, or face the build's rebellion.